Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about Stop Listening to Negativity Part 2. Hi, I'm Roland Juno, and this is my channel where I talk about synthesizers. If you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button so you can keep up with all of my synth adventures. Well, we've been talking about negativity, and I know it's been a little while since I did my last video on it, but I wanted to continue on. It is the holiday seasons, and I've been trying to keep up with family and people coming to visit and things like that. So I'm sorry that I'm a little behind on my vlogging, but that's part of life, right? And I do teach that we have to enjoy life first. That's why we work, right? Not that saying that work is not enjoyable if it's synthesizers. But let's get to the point that I'm talking about. Stop listening to negativity. Now, in part one, I talked about how people can criticize, and mostly it's because those people can be jealous, right? People can be jealous of what you're doing. Then there's just negative people. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why people can be overcritical. And I talked about how we should listen to the critics that talk about our production, like, the drums are too loud or they're not loud enough. The bass is pumping too hard, whatever. Those can be constructive criticisms. But when people are just trashing your art and your efforts and telling you that you're never going to make your dream come true, those are the kind of negativities that we want to stay away from. But there's another negative voice in our lives that can overtake us, that can become a greater burden. And it is fed by ourselves and by others. And the negative voice that I'm talking about is, of course, our own negative voice. When it comes to negativity, I can be my worst enemy. Now, there's a point where you have to get away from people who are tearing you down. You just have to do it if you want to continue pursuing your dream. But there's one person you can't get away from, and that's you. However, now this is going to probably come out a little confusing. I'm going to try to explain this a little bit in layman terms. There's one more factor. Getting away from people that are negative towards your dreams, negative towards your desires, what you want to achieve in your life, that's the first step to silencing those voices. However, once the damage is done, our brains are like tape recorders. They record this negativity, and they are likely to play that negativity over and over and over again. And as an individual, we have to find techniques and methods that overcome the replay of negative voices. In other words, what I mean is we have to find a way that we can dub over those negative voices. You see, when people speak negativity into our lives, it solidifies in our minds. Not every time. I'm not talking about, a dogmatic viewpoint on this. But in many cases, it can solidify in your brain and subconsciously replay discouraging you. And oftentimes, we don't always hear those voices identical to the way they came out. Many times when somebody says something negative pertaining to ourselves, we add or take away from it. In many cases, we just simply add to what they've said. We psychoanalyze, why did they say that? I bet you they said it because of this. And we have a tendency to look in ourselves and see our flaws and wonder whether or not the person who is speaking negativity into our lives doesn't see those flaws as well. Then we become alarmed because now our flaws are evident, and we've been trying to cover those flaws up so nobody could see our weakness, so that nobody could see our shortcomings. But yet here comes along a person who exposes us, or we think they exposed us, and we become hurt by that person. We become angry, whether or not it's anger towards that person or even ourselves or both. It creates a wave of negativity that we take with us even when that person is gone. Now, in this past week, I had somebody say something that was unsynth related. Okay, it was a personal opinion that they had. Um, I'm a very helpful person. You wouldn't know that unless you knew me. And it appears that some who know me also don't realize that I'm a very helpful person because the person that I'm referring to, they had said something negative to me. They said, I do nothing for them ever. Now, I know that this is a person who is unthankful. I get that. I understand that. But, it can play over in your head at times when you try your very best to be a kind, compassionate person, and then the person that you've been so self-sacrificing to says a statement like that, that you are basically, you have done nothing for me. Um, that plays over in my head during the week while I'm trying to work. And I know it's an untruth, okay? But it's frustrating, all right? Now, this is a different kind of negativity. I know the truth, and I know that this person is wrong, but it frustrates me that this person would say such a thing. I'm not saying I'm always right, just to be clear on this. However, I know in this circumstance that I've been more than helpful. I've been more than self-sacrificing. And it's very frustrating that this person doesn't see it. And I find myself trying to find a way to explain to them they're wrong, which I know the answer to that is, don't waste my time. But it is frustrating to play it over in your head and try to wonder to yourself, how can this person be so blind? Because that's what it is. It's a type of blindness. Now, you see, negativity in this case comes in a different form. In this form of negativity, I know the truth about me. I do know that I'm a very helpful person. I will help people. I'm not perfect at it, okay? I'm not claiming to be perfect. So please, let's not make a misunderstanding. I know that I can be unhelpful and counterproductive as well. I know that I'm capable of doing that. But with this one particular person, I know that I went the extra mile on many occasions. And there are so many things that this person is unaware of that I've helped them with in their life that they simply were not told about because I didn't tell them. And there comes this train of negativity flowing through my brain of, maybe I should say this, maybe I should say that. Now, I'm not going to do any of that, okay? I'm just thinking about it. And I have to find a way when these negativity thoughts come into my mind to dub over them. Now, I've cut ties with this person because of the pattern that this person has seen that I have seen, that this person has been doing in my life. It's a pattern of get close and then attack. I don't know why people do this. It's kind of strange why people can be this way when you're a very helpful person. But you remember my last video about getting away from people like that. There comes a time when you don't really give up on the person, but you have to abstain from their company. Now, of course, if this person is in dire need, I will do my best to help that person out to a certain point. But you got to remember that if you give too much of yourself without any kind of appreciation, you yourself have a chance of burning out, okay? Now, appreciation can come in the simple form of not being negative when somebody or when you do something good for somebody. In other words, what I mean by this is I'm not looking for a thank you, okay? I'm not looking for a thank you from this person. I'm not looking for a pat on the back. I'm not even looking for them to tell anyone that I've done anything for them. My form of appreciation would be simply don't say I haven't done anything good for you, that I have done nothing for you. Don't say that. In other words, just take the gift of help and remain silent if you can't say anything good. Which reminds me, there's an old saying, if you can't think of anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. That's the kind of appreciation that I would at least enjoy. It's like, okay, don't thank me, but don't hate on me either. And so if I am going to do something good for somebody and they're going to turn it into something bad, they're going to turn it into something negative, then I'm going to abstain from that person and stay away from them. And it's unfortunate because you lose a connection with another human being. And it's bothersome, especially when it's a person that may be in your family or circle of friends. You just have to be very careful. And then when you are around that person, you have to be very careful about what you say to that person or around that person. All right? Now, I'm getting a little bit off topic, but where I'm leading to this is that when you're alone, you can't get away from yourself. You can't abstain from yourself. So you have to do the next best thing. You have to get away from your thoughts. You have to overdub the negativity that other people, including yourself, have planted in your mind. Now, there's different techniques, and I could go into all kinds of different ones, but you know, that's not the scope of this video. It's not the scope of this channel, really. But I will tell you something that works for me. What I try to do is I try to surround myself with a positive environment and focus on the things that I enjoy doing. Now, you might say, well, that's synthesizers. Absolutely, I love synthesizers. I love playing with them. I love making music. But to be honest with you, what I really like to do to overdub those things is I like to bring myself into the company of those who are positive. And here's the thing. I don't dump on people, okay? Now, it's okay to have a friend that you can trust to talk about your problems, but I would strongly recommend that when you talk about your hurts or you talk about your pain, that you be as vague as possible with the with the identity of the offender. This keeps people from gossiping and getting in the middle of your business, and especially if they happen to know the person, or if they may one day in your circle of friends or family come into contact with said person. So what I like to do is I like to replace the negativity with someone who is positive. And then, you know, when I'm by myself, I try to engage in positive activities, whatever that may be. For me, it's alone time in my studio, making tracks. Now, you know, I'm talking about a personal attack that had nothing to do with synthesizers or music. However, there are some negative thoughts that pop in our heads when we're doing music tracks. We have a tendency as musicians, as synth drones, to compare ourselves to some of the big name brands that are out there. We like to look at some of the big stars in the synth world, and we compare ourselves. Now, here's a problem with this kind of negativity. Remember, we're talking about the kind of negativity that comes from oneself. We have a tendency to look at someone who's already accomplished their dream or their goals, or at least enough of their dreams, enough of their goals to be in the spotlight. We look at that person and then we compare ourselves from our standing point, okay? Now, let me put this in the focus a little clearer. Imagine that two people are climbing a cliff and you're at the bottom, you're one of the two people, and you're standing at the bottom of the cliff. And you're comparing your achievement to the person who's already spent all day long climbing the cliff, and they're at the top. And they're waving at you saying, come on up. Now, you can't really compare yourself to that person until you get to the top, because you haven't made your journey yet. You see what I'm getting at? So what we do as musicians, as synth drones, is we take a look at the people who are sitting at the top of their game, okay, or at least at a higher tier than where we are at, and we compare ourselves from a lower standpoint. And that's daunting because our journey isn't complete, or our journey isn't ongoing long enough. If you look at some of the people who have success, all right, who are enjoying success, who are enjoying the fruits of their labor, you will find that there was a time where they struggled, where they hurt, where they had pain and suffering and doubts and almost wanted to give up, and in some cases did give up for a period of time. But you don't hear about those stories as often as you do about the hit record that they came out with and how they did that hit record. There was a famous electronic artist, and really it escapes me who it was at this point, but it doesn't matter because what they said is more important. He said when they were recording their first tracks, when they were first getting into music, and they were a, quote, nobody, if you will. I hate to use that word because nobody's a nobody, but, you know, they were unrecognizable. They would go hungry before they would sell any of their equipment. They would suffer dearly before they would sell any of their equipment. They would just hang on to everything that they had. And now, to this day, they have equipment that is museum quality, if you will, okay? It's in pristine condition. They've taken good care of it, but they never sold anything. That's paying a price for their success. That's paying a price to stay on top. You have to discipline yourself. Negative thoughts coming into your mind, comparing your music to other people. I don't compare my music to other artists. Now, I may compare the quality of my mixes and my mix downs and my sound to other artists. I think that that is important, that you have reference tracks from similar artists, but I don't compare my tracks and say, oh, well, they did something artistically here, maybe I should do it there. I don't want to sound like anybody else. I want to sound like me, and this is important. And I would certainly ask people when they're critiquing your music not to just listen to the production of it, which is important, but ask them, do I sound like anybody else that you're familiar with? Of course, you'd have to have someone who listens to your genre of music to be able to answer that question. Don't ask them for, is it any good? Do you like it? You know, is this my best track ever? What do you think? You're going to open yourself up to negativity that's going to solidify in your soul, and you're going to remember that for a long time, whatever negativity that may come out of their mind. They may not even intentionally do it. And I'm not saying that every single person you ask that question to is going to react that way either, okay? I have a very good friend who's very objective, and I will let him listen to my music, and he will say, look, if I liked this kind of music, I would definitely buy your stuff. And he always asks me for my music. And he always offers to pay me for it, you know, but he's a friend. And I don't want to charge him any money. He's a very good friend. He's what I would call a life friend, one of those people that you just know you're going to know and get along with and love and care about forever. And, you know, then there's my wife, who I let listen to my music, and she doesn't like electronica music in any way, shape, or form, but she's objective, and she'll say things at times that, you know, that are very dishonest because she's my wife, okay? But I know how to filter her. And when she thinks that something is really, what do you call it, something that really stands out, something that's really unique, she has expressions on her face. And I mentioned this in another video. So to summarize what I'm saying here is that the negative voices that you're hearing out there that are not your own right now, okay, they're voices from other people, those have to be dealt with first and foremost. You have to silence those voices in one way or another. Until then, you cannot deal with the most negative challenge, and that's you, okay? You, me, and everyone else has a tendency to critique ourselves negatively. We can be our own worst enemy and our own best friend, all at the same time. On one hand, we want everyone to love us and we don't want anyone to see our flaws. But then we get alone with ourselves and we realize, wait a minute, I know who I really am. And we don't. We don't really know who we really are until we start listening with our own ears and not with someone else's. Well, I hope this video helps you out, because to me, it's important that we grasp the emotional side of music. And we can't be static players. We can't be static musicians. Music is an emotional expression. And that's why this vlog has shifted over the months into something that's more motivational than technical. Because you can have all the technical skill in the world, but if you don't put emotion into your music and your production, you're going to sound like a machine. And as you can see in the studio, we have a lot of machines, right? We have a lot of machines. But we are the most important factor in our music. So I hope that this shift in motivation on this channel is helping you. I love all you guys. Leave a comment. It's really important that I hear from you guys. Let's be constructive. Let's be uplifting to one another. And if you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button so you can keep up with all of my synth adventures. Until next time, keep calm and synth on.